I've been making cosplay costumes for about 5 years now. What started as a hobby making my own convention outfits turned into a small business when other cosplayers started asking me to make costumes for them. I'm pretty good at what I do, and I'm proud to say I'm a member of one of the most prestigious cosplay clubs in our area. Getting accepted isn't easy. They have really strict standards for costumes and member conduct. A few months ago, I got a commission request from someone we'll call Karen. She wanted to join our club and needed a specific costume that would meet the club's requirements. She seemed nice enough at first, and we spent some time discussing the details. We discussed payment terms, and I told her my labor fee, plus explained that she would need to reimburse me for materials. I promised to provide all receipts to keep everything transparent. She enthusiastically agreed and sent me the club's list of requirements, emphasizing how important it was that everything be exactly right for her club admission. I started working on the costume, and since it was my first time making this design, I consulted with one of our club judges throughout the process to ensure everything was up to standard. I even had to fix a mistake at one point, which I did at no extra charge because I wanted it to be perfect. When I finished, I sent her photos of the completed costume. That's when everything went downhill. She immediately started criticizing the work, questioning the collar design, and complaining about the stitching on the sleeve. When I pointed out where these exact details were specified in her own requirements list, she suddenly claimed to be allergic to the fabric. I reminded her that this fabric was also specified in the requirements and asked why she hadn't mentioned her allergy before I started. She completely ignored my question about the allergy and moved on to complaining about costs. She accused me of deliberately buying the most expensive materials possible to rip her off. I explained that I had actually chosen the polyester version instead of wool specifically to keep costs down, and offered to show her the receipts to prove it. She went quiet after I addressed all her complaints, making one vague comment that seemed like reluctant agreement. Then she ghosted me. After waiting a while, I reached out again since she still hadn't paid me. That's when she became outright hostile, calling my work garbage and insisting it would never pass approval. She called me a scammer. I offered to set up a chat with the club judge who had already reviewed the work so they could confirm it met all requirements. She refused, claiming I was trying to trick her, and declared she wouldn't pay for what she called trash. She kept hurling insults until I finally left the conversation. But that's not where this story ends. I contacted our club leader to warn other members about Karen's behavior, since several other members also take commissions. The leader did some digging and discovered something interesting. Karen had been causing problems with other members too. She'd bought parts for another costume and was manipulating two other members who had offered to teach her how to make it. Instead of learning, she kept pressuring them until one basically ended up making it for her for free. The club leader had seen enough. Instead of just warning members about her, they decided to permanently ban Karen from ever joining the club. And when she found out, she absolutely lost it. She posted this massive rant on Facebook, calling us all sorts of names and making wild accusations. The next week, several of us club members met up at a local bar to commiserate about our Karen experiences. We spent the evening sharing stories and toasting to never having to deal with her again. But the story gets even better. A few weeks later, I found out that Karen had tried to join several other cosplay clubs in neighboring cities. However, word had gotten around about her behavior, and none of them would accept her. Last I heard, she was complaining on social media about how toxic the entire cosplay community is, while conveniently leaving out her own actions that led to this situation. The costume she commissioned is still hanging in my workspace. I've decided to donate it to a local theater group. At least someone will get some use out of it, and it's better than letting Karen's negativity taint a piece of work I'm actually quite proud of. I've been working at this medical insurance office for about 3 years now as a front desk receptionist. It's usually a pretty calm job, helping clients with their paperwork, scheduling appointments, and making sure everything runs smoothly. I actually got this job through my aunt who used to work here before retiring. She knew I was struggling to find stable work after finishing my business administration degree and put in a good word for me. It turned out to be a perfect fit since I'm naturally organized and enjoy helping people. The office itself is modern and professional, with a spacious lobby that's meant to be welcoming for our clients. One of the main features is this wall of shelves filled with informational pamphlets about different insurance plans and health services. The shelves stretch from the floor all the way up to about 6 feet high, attached to the wall with these flimsy metal brackets. They're really only designed to hold lightweight materials like papers and brochures. I've seen my fair share of incidents with these shelves, mostly involving parents who don't watch their kids. Usually, when a child starts climbing, we quickly intervene and everything works out fine. Yesterday, though, that wasn't the case. I was at my desk going through some paperwork when I heard this awful screeching sound. Looking up, I saw this kid, probably around 5 years old, throwing what seemed like the tantrum of the century while eyeing our pamphlet wall like it was a climbing frame. My co-worker, who's been here longer than me, immediately went over to handle the situation. She's always great with people, very friendly and patient. She politely approached them and warned about the shelves not being sturdy, expressing concern about potential injuries from climbing. The kid's mother, who I'll call Karen since she definitely earned the title, whipped her head around and snapped at my co-worker, telling her to mind her own business and insisting she was watching her child. My co-worker calmly responded that she just wanted to prevent any injuries. The kid actually stopped climbing for a moment, but was still screaming his head off. Instead of dealing with her child, Karen decided to march up to my desk, completely abandoning her kid by the shelves. Obviously, the second she walked away, he started climbing again. I called out to the kid, telling him he needed to stay off the shelves. Karen immediately snapped at me, defending her child and claiming he wasn't breaking anything. Right on cue, there was this horrible cracking sound. The kid had managed to pull down 2 entire shelves and face planted onto the floor. His screaming went from angry to hurt real quick. The commotion brought our supervisor out from her cubicle. Our supervisor came out asking what had happened. Karen immediately claimed her son was just trying to reach something when the shelves fell on him. When our supervisor asked if he had been climbing, Karen quickly interrupted before my coworker and I could answer, adamantly denying it and insisting the shelves just fell. Our supervisor mentioned hearing my co-worker's earlier warning about climbing and asked about the child's well-being. Karen angrily responded that her child was obviously hurt and blamed us for the injury. One of our security guards had already made his way over, having witnessed the whole thing. He offered first aid and asked Karen to fill out a report. Karen refused, still insisting the shelves had simply fallen and hurt her child. The security guard then pointed out that he had witnessed the whole incident, including the child climbing after being warned and Karen leaving him unsupervised. Karen tried to shift blame to the security guard, demanding to know why he hadn't stopped her child. He explained that their job was to protect the offices, not supervise children, and again asked about first aid and her information for the report. That's when Karen completely lost it. She started hurling racial slurs at our security guard and refused to provide any information. She was yelling about calling the news and suing our company. Our supervisor, who I've always admired for her ability to handle difficult situations, stepped in between Karen and the security guard. Our supervisor gave Karen 2 options: leave voluntarily or be removed with security assistance. When Karen demanded to know who she was, our supervisor simply repeated that she was the one giving Karen the choice. Karen looked like she'd been slapped. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, but nothing came out. Then, in a move that made us all gasp, she roughly grabbed her still crying child and practically threw him into his stroller. When she stormed out, she kept screaming threats over her shoulder, but by then we had 2 more security guards following her to make sure she actually left. The entire incident was caught on our security cameras. We spent the next hour filing detailed reports, and our security team made sure to save all the footage. A week later, we received notice that Karen had actually tried to file a lawsuit against our company. However, when our legal team responded with the security footage showing her negligence and her racial slurs, against our security guard. She quickly dropped the case. The company has since installed new, much sturdier shelving units, and we now have a strict no climbing policy posted prominently in the lobby. After spending years as a park ranger in one of America's most beautiful national parks, I had grown accustomed to the peace and solitude that came with a job. Sure, I had my share of relationships, but nothing ever really stuck. Most women couldn't handle the isolation or my unconventional schedule. At 30, I had pretty much accepted that my life would revolve around my work, and I was okay with that. Then she walked into my life. It was during the peak season when I first met her. She was working as a housekeeper at one of the park's lodges on a work visa from Romania. She was 22, bright-eyed, and had this infectious enthusiasm about everything American. The first time we talked, it was about the simple differences between our countries. She was fascinated by how massive our national parks were compared to anything back home. I told her to wait until she saw the park during sunset, explaining that's when it was truly magical. She responded by telling me that while her country had beautiful places too, nothing compared to this. She said everything here seemed so free. Our conversations became longer, and before I knew it, we were spending every free moment together. She told me about life in Romania, about the struggles her family faced, and how getting this job in America was like winning the lottery for her. I found myself completely captivated by her stories and her perspective on life. Within a month, we were dating. The age difference never seemed to matter. She was mature for her age, and I felt younger when I was with her. We made it work even after her visa expired and she had to return home. We'd coordinate our off-seasons. I'd fly to Romania, or we'd meet in various European cities, and she'd come to the States when she could. For 2 years, this was our life, and I loved every minute of it. During one of my visits to Romania, her mother pulled me aside one evening. She explained how life there wasn't easy, and how things had been difficult ever since the communist times. She told me her daughter deserved better than this struggle. I assured her that I understood and wanted to give her daughter the best life possible. Her mother then said that in America, her daughter could have opportunities she would never have in Romania. The conversation planted a seed in my mind. I had a stable job, a good home, and I loved her. Why not take the next step? I started researching the sponsorship process, got all the paperwork in order, and finally proposed. She said yes, and I felt like I was living in a dream. Getting her settled in the States was a whirlwind of paperwork and bureaucracy, but seeing her so happy made it all worth it. Or so I thought. Then came the message that shattered everything. Her best friend from Romania reached out to me through social media. She apologized and said she couldn't keep quiet anymore, telling me I needed to see something. What followed was like a punch to the gut. Screenshots, hundreds of them. Messages spanning the entire course of our relationship where she bragged about her perfect American fool and how easy it was to manipulate me. 8 different men. 8, some in Romania, some during her visits to America. All while I was planning our future. Her best friend told me I was a good man who didn't deserve this. She revealed how my fiancé had been laughing about finally finding her ticket to America and that she had never loved me. I felt sick. But then I remembered something. A conversation with her brother during my last visit to Romania. We were sharing a bottle of his homemade plum brandy when he started bragging about his adventures. He told me about his time in prison for weapons trafficking with Turkish terrorist groups and how his little sister, my fiancée, had been his lookout during several operations. At the time I'd written it off as drunk talk. Now it felt like karma had handed me the perfect weapon. I spent the next day gathering every bit of information I could remember from that conversation. Then I made 2 phone calls, one to Immigration and Customs Enforcement and another to Homeland Security. I detailed everything, the weapons trafficking, the terrorist connections, her role as an accomplice. The response was swift. Within 48 hours, she was in custody. Within a week, she was deported. She was placed on a permanent terror watch list. No more American dream, no more scamming other unsuspecting men, no more anything in the United States. The last message I got was from her mother. She demanded to know how I could do this to her daughter, saying she had a future here. I coldly replied that she didn't have a future here, she had a con, and now she had consequences. I later heard through mutual acquaintances that her involvement with her brother's activities had made her virtually unhireable in any respectable company back home. Turns out that even in Romania, being on an American terror watch list isn't great for your resume. I always kept to myself and focused on my studies, though I wasn't exactly what you'd call a star student. Just average grades, barely skating by. But everything changed when I started college 2 years ago. My parents always pushed me to do better, telling me I had potential I wasn't using. Maybe they were right because once I got to college, something clicked. My grades improved dramatically, and I even started coming out of my shell, making friends and actually enjoying the college experience. In my country, we have these mandatory exams you need to pass to stay in college, kind of like the SATs, but with English, math, and Arabic sections. The stakes are high, pass them within 2 years, or you're out. No second chances. I buckled down and studied hard, passing all of them in my first semester. My English score was good, which surprised everyone since it's my second language. Being in a small college meant you got to know pretty much everyone. I started helping other students who were struggling, especially with English. That's how I became friends with this girl from my class. She'd failed the English exam multiple times, and with her 2-year deadline approaching, she was getting desperate. I started spending more and more time helping her study. I even skipped some of my own classes to tutor her. Not my proudest decision, but I really wanted to help. We'd meet in the student room almost every day, going over practice tests and vocabulary. 1 week before her final attempt at the exam, we were studying together when she brought up something unexpected. She hesitantly asked if she could ask me something. When I told her to go ahead, she started reminding me about how good I was at English and mentioned it was her last chance. After I acknowledged this, she finally worked up the courage to ask if I would take the exam for her, mentioning that other students had done it before and gotten away with it. I hesitated. I knew it was wrong, but she seemed so desperate. After thinking it over, I agreed. That same day, we were studying in the student room with another classmate. I went out to get some food we'd ordered, but as I approached the door coming back, I heard voices. I overheard her mocking me to the other student. She was making fun of how I tried to speak English, calling it pathetic. When the other student asked who she was talking about, she clarified she meant her tutor, and went on to mock how I was acting all social now, and trying to fit in with everyone, calling me desperate for attention. They both laughed, and my blood ran cold. I stood there, food in hand, listening to her mock my accent and laugh about how I was trying too hard to be friendly with people. I walked in like I hadn't heard anything, but inside, I was seething. This person I've been helping, missing classes for, and now agreeing to risk my own academic career for, was laughing at me behind my back. The day of the exam came. Before going in, I made one final request, asking her to get me some coffee and a donut, claiming I needed the energy. She eagerly agreed, saying she'd get me anything I needed. I went into the exam room. Thankfully, no one questioned who I was, and proceeded to answer almost every question wrong. Not obviously wrong, just enough to ensure failure. Multiple choice questions, random clicks, writing section, basic grammar mistakes that even elementary students would make. When I came out, she was waiting with my coffee, practically bouncing with anticipation. She asked me how it went and if it was hard. I told her congratulations and that she wouldn't have to worry about the English exam anymore. She practically skipped away, probably already planning her next semester. I never saw her again after that day. She didn't even bother to thank me. Why would she? She thought she'd gotten exactly what she wanted. When the results came out, she must have been shocked to see she'd scored even lower than her previous attempts. With no more chances left, she was kicked out of college. 2 years of studies wasted. I heard through mutual friends that she had to move back to her hometown and explain to her family why she couldn't continue her education. Apparently, she tried to enroll in another college, but with her academic record and the fail out on her transcript, no one would take her. Meanwhile, I'm still here, maintaining my good grades and helping people who actually appreciate it.